Hey everyone, this is Greg. Welcome to Patio Slave, episode 85.
That's beautiful. So Greg is back. Greg Bergdorf. Nice to have you back. This is round 4.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's exciting.
No, nobody's at 4 yet for me, except for me, right?
You were the only person at 4 now. We do have somebody who's come on 3 episodes, but it was twice. We had him on. We just split episode the second time into 2 episodes. So a local rapper by the name of Spose we've had on the last couple of weeks back. So yeah, you were the first person to get to 4 and 3 for that matter.
If you want to checkmate that, you just have to talk. We just have to talk for like 4 hours and you can get like 6 episodes.
You get split them in half.
I am off tomorrow, so that's fine for me.
You're taking tomorrow off in case the Red Sox win. You're going to be too hungover.
I might be having a decent evening. Watching them right now on my phone as we're doing this because I can't. If anybody follows us on Twitter, I was doing the same thing last night at the Frank Turner show at Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom. I had the game on my phone and the stage right in front of me, so it was pretty wild. But yeah, go Sox! Just throwing that out there.
Who's Frank Turner out with?
Laura Jane Grace and Nathan Gray, and it was awesome. Laura Jane hadn't played a ton. I think she said she'd played like maybe 1 or 2 shows a month since August. So this might have been the 5th time she's played somewhere, and that's the first time I've seen her. So I was pretty stoked. I saw Against Me back in the day, probably 10 years ago, but first time I'd seen her on her own, and she was awesome. And obviously Frank put on a great show because that's what he does.
Cool.
Have you played that room, the Hampton Beach Casino in New Hampshire?
Is it on a boardwalk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I did.
Nice.
Once. If I remember correctly, if I'm thinking of the right place, our drummer, Ed, flew home for that show or to skip that show because his girlfriend was graduating college and was going to break up with him if he wasn't at her walk.
Oh, wow.
And we had Carlos from Real Big Fish sit in on drums. And he learned the set the day before. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'll just play.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, great room. Holds like 2,000 people. It was probably, if it wasn't sold out, it was damn near close. And everybody was really into it. There were a couple of people that had medical issues, unfortunately, that kind of stopped things a few times, but everybody was allowed to do what they needed to. The crowd was awesome. Frank was awesome in kind of directing people what to do from the stage, which was probably not something that he does a ton, but has done before. And it was wild. It was a good show. I'm stoked to be back at live music. So it was fun. Yeah. Awesome.
Did you have to show a vaccination card or anything to get in or?
Yeah. My wife and I went and they, I think at Frank's request, because New Hampshire has been a little more lax than Maine and California, where the rest of us live. And I don't know how it is down where you are, Greg, but it's
Georgia, man. They don't care.
You're right. I was there this summer. You're right. But yeah, they did. They had us. Everything that I've been to so far, I've been to 4 shows, and 3 of them have asked for cards. So I've got a picture of it on my phone. Here it is, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only state that could care less is Florida. And my buddy, in early summer was like, oh man, Steel Panther's coming to town and they already sold out 2 shows. I was like, oh, really? They're still in the middle of this Delta variant kick up thing? And he's like, yeah, nobody fucking here cares, man. Yeah. we're in the panhandle. He's in at 30A. Santa Rosa. Wow. And he's like, yeah, nobody cares. He's like, you'll get made fun of if you wear a mask. The mask shaming is the other way around there.
Yeah.
So since we last chatted, Tone's actually seen you guys, the Bourbon Brothers, down in your neck of the woods. So how was that? Yeah. You guys met each other in the flesh.
Greg, how was it for you? It was great for me.
It's nice when your internet friends become your real life friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a blast. My wife and I went down to Savannah for a couple days in late July, and we met up and saw the Bourbon Brothers live and in person in Savannah, Georgia. And it was 1,000 degrees, Greg?
It was pretty hot.
Yeah,
it was hot and sweaty, and it was I think the last week of summer before school for kids. But it was a good time. It's always a good time over there.
That's a fun town. That's a fun town. Yeah. First time we'd been there, and it was cool to there's such history, and not all of it's amazing, but just the old buildings and the big trees, and every time you walk a block there's a park. It's a pretty cool town.
Right. Or cemetery.
Yep,
that's right. Yep. Yeah.
Tone, that was your first show since the pandemic, right? Or one of the first few, I think.
That was the first. Yeah, that was the second thing I'd seen live, because Twan and I we saw Trawl early July at Aura, like July 8th or 9th or something like that, on Friday night in July. But that was the first like proper show I went to. But then seeing those guys, and the first time I'd like really gone out and ventured out of the state of Maine and done something fun since the pandemic. So it was really fun to meet up with Greg and his wife and have an awesome dinner the night before we saw you guys play, and then see you guys play the next day, which was just a blast. It was a good time. And I would tell everybody, go check them out if you can. I mean, the Bourbon Brothers are a fun time, and they put on a good show, and they're, lots of fun crowd interaction. You had some regulars that were really giving you guys a hoot here and there, and that was a good time.
Yeah, we're not sure if we're the mayors or if some of the regulars are the mayors of a lot of places we play.
Yeah. So how's that stuff going for you guys? Are you still gigging around?
Yeah. We're we got 6 shows this week.
Damn.
Wow.
So
on tour.
Well, they're all, I won't say all local, because one is like we were in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, like an hour outside of Knoxville last weekend for a gig. This weekend is trying to remember without having to pull up the calendar. No, it's in town. Next weekend is south, like 2 hours south of the city.
Nice.
Yeah, we're if we can get there and drive home the next day, we're in.
Like it. I like it.
Or even drive home the same day. We actually drove home after the gig last weekend, and Reed, the singer, bought the Fury Wilder fight. So we were shouting it at a little phone the whole time, like, yeah, get him, come.
That's amazing. And something you might hear from me with the Red Sox game still going in the background. So.
Speaking of live music, that's cool reminiscing about the show you guys were all at in Georgia. We were all at a show in Maine together. Your former touring members, 311, rolled through Portland, Maine, and we saw them outside. Great fucking show. Yeah, we've been like seeing a lot of shows. We're trying to slide them in when we can. We're all adults now, so it's not as easy as it used to be. But I can't. I think it's because there was some distance between seeing shows during COVID that I started to like kind of deep dive a little bit more during the live show and kind of just focus in on lately the guitarists, on their shredding ability. Like, holy shit. And maybe it's because of talking with you. It's like it's a little bit more deep. You're like, oh shit, that guy's up there fucking ripping like Eddie Van Halen, but like, how the fuck does he do that shit? I know someone that does it. I know someone that knows, and I think that guy is Greg. So today we're going to get a Shreducation, which I got a coin by Tone. Tone coined that. It was a good one.
I think Twan might have even. Yeah.
Oh, was it Twan?
I think it was Twan. Yeah.
Probably.
Nice. One of you nerds. So we thought we'd get you back on and kind of school us on how the hell do you do that shit?
Oh man. When you guys gave me the topic, I was like, oh man, I don't really know. If I knew, I would have wrote better riffs and we'd have had more hits.
Oh, I think you wrote some pretty good riffs and had some pretty good hits, man. You're selling yourself short there. That's for sure.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, what hits?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, that was, I mean, Nate saw Pearl Jam a couple times over the last couple of weeks, and he put up a post on our Instagram page of Mike McCready just soloing. It's like, oh man, we need to know more about how this happens. How do you do that? Like, we've got questions. So we've got some questions for you, Greg, regarding how do you come up with it? How did you start doing it? Why did you fall in love with playing guitar? All that fun stuff.
All right, I'm ready. Even though I had this whole thing planned with playing through this amp and plugging it into the Zoom, and didn't work out.
I know that. We will do that at some point, though. We definitely want to do that at some point.
But I was gonna play some riffs and be like, hey, here's how I guess I didn't know how into the weeds you guys wanted me to get with maybe some, like, because I can nerd out all day on like music theory, gear, and just like, and so yeah, I wasn't sure, like how do I how deep do I go here into the theory of, say, how maybe a riff or a solo is going, or where the key changes are, or just maybe some of the effects of how it is, or different techniques to soloing. Like you take Eddie Van Halen, right? When Eruption came out, nobody was really two-hand tapping. It was like kind of mind-boggling to people of like, what is he playing? How is he doing that? How is he playing so fast? And even before they were signed, he would turn his back to the audience so that nobody could see what he was doing.
Damn.
And it could not rip him off.
It's like a magician.
And right. And like to this day, one of the best shows I've ever seen live was Pearl Jam at the Palladium in LA. And it was off the 10 record, right? And it was still on the way up. Like it hadn't hit its peak height of how big that record got yet. And I don't remember the middle band. They were super weird and dressed up like spacemen or something. I don't know. They were awkward and awful. And everybody sat down. But the first band was this band that nobody knew who the hell they were. And they were recently signed, and the record wasn't out yet. And the guitar player is playing stuff, and I'm watching him do it. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out if they're tracks that they're playing to. Is there a DJ off stage? Is this guy really playing this? What? And like, my mind is like, what the fuck is happening right now? How is this possible of the sounds that he's making? And it was Rage Against the Machine.
I knew you were going to say that. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just like the crowd was insane for them. And like, I mean, you're a bunch of 18-year-old kids in a sweaty room full of 2,000 other sweaty teenagers, and a guy on the mic shouting, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." Like, you're going to remember it, even if you've never heard that song before. And like, the whole place was jumping up and down the whole time. And they were throwing out sampler tapes. That's how long ago it was when they were done playing. And just the techniques of how Tom Morello does some of the stuff he did too is really creative and different, and just something new. I think he's the last guy that I would say really did something different and creative on guitar that was like, what the fuck is that?
So let me ask you, like, him, what's so impressive about him? Because like we're not musicians, but when we hear it, we're like, damn, that sounds amazing. Is it technically challenging to play what he plays, or is it the innovation that's so impressive with a guy like that?
I think it's the innovation.
Yeah.
Because once you demystify it, you're like, oh, okay.
But he thought of it, and that's the crazy thing. But, like, he thought of it,
And whether it's his what he listened to catalog wise and wanted to make a DJ sounds on a guitar and figure out how to do something like that, or just like divine intervention or an accident, or like, you just, where inspiration strikes from sometimes. Yeah. Just seeing that just gives you like a different perspective on maybe I'm like personally my own playing, like, oh, like there's rules, but then there's not rules. And like Eddie Van Halen would always say, theory, whatever, technique. At the end of the day, if it sounds good, it is good. And then don't worry about anything. It's just, if you like it, play it. If it seems weird to somebody else, it doesn't mean it's like bad. So, you can push the boundaries and keep trying to do new things and play off of other people's ideas, maybe expand on something that they did. There's always something around the corner. But I guess I was gonna I was gonna play a bunch of riffs and kind of go over theoretically like what they do. So I was gonna take, like, if you can think of the intro to Hot for Teacher with the tapping and begin. If you break the arpeggio down, the first one is an A minor arpeggio, even though he's tapping it. The next one goes to a D, then it goes to a D minor. But every section that he's tapping it's really just the root notes in a chord. And so you take the chord and you arpeggiate it. And then instead of arpeggiating it with picking it, he's tapping it. It gives it a completely different sound, even though it's still the same 3 fucking notes.
Wow.
Right.
Sometimes you can take chords and just build a riff on 3 chords, like Back in Black. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
How simple is that? But how
Right.
fucking cool is that riff?
Right, exactly.
It's an all
It's
time.
like everybody knows it. Everybody knows
Right?
it. Yeah, exactly.
And then I was trying to think of some more arpeggiated ones, like Sweet Child of Mine. It's really just a play on D, and then he rotates the bass note around on it. So he's still playing those 3 notes, do 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 do, right? It's all D, and then the next note, do 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 do. So that bass note just changes every time. And Slash, I read an article that's when Slash wrote that riff, he actually wrote it as a finger exercise, and he was just playing it in band practice one day, and everybody was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!"
What was that?
Do that again.
Yeah.
He's
We
like,
need
"What?"
this.
He's like, "No, man, it sounds like a calliope. This is not a guitar riff. I wrote this to be like a finger exercise." Everybody else is like, "No, we're gonna make a song out of this."
Yeah.
And so they built the song around that riff. But another riff that works the same way, it's arpeggiating a chord, but then they change the bass line. What's My Age Again? Blink is another really good example of like, you're just playing the root notes in a chord, and then you change the bass note every time. So if you think about that one,
Yeah. Damn it, you're right.
It's the same. It's just one chord. They just changed. You put 4 different bass notes on it.
I already love this because it's stuff that I don't think about, but I know you know it because you've done it. Like it's, and your ear is musical for that reason. You know, like that's something that you bring a different perspective than I do anyway.
You highlighted. I've heard that riff forever. I've never heard that part kind of highlighted.
Yeah.
To the surface until you mentioned it.
But it's really just one chord.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Here, one chord riff. I was trying to think of like just a straight up one chord riff. Foxy Lady, Jimi Hendrix. Dun, 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 dun. This is one chord.
Wow.
And then it has that little chromatic climb. Do, 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 do. And then back to the one chord. Dun, 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 dun.
Damn. Oh,
But
man.
another, again, right? Such a cool riff.
Yeah. You're just like playing. You're playing the one note, but you're changing it up enough. But then you go back to a song like that, or even What's My Age Again, and it's such an iconic sound, or Back in Black, it's such an iconic sound that you don't even think that it's not simple per se, because somebody had to come up with it and put it down correctly. But it's more simple than maybe I had ever thought.
Right. Especially when it's like a normal chord. It's not like something that's super intricate, or like it's something that within like a month or two, if you're playing guitar and somebody showed you the riff, you could probably play it. Like
Green Day's Brain Stew.
Yeah.
It's like that. I could play that in my
scale,
sleep,
right?
and I don't even play.
Yeah. So Brain Stew, right?
Yeah.
The first time we heard, gosh dang it, we used to play with them all the time before they got signed, and then they had, this was their first song, Papa Roach. Right?
Yep.
Now think of Brain Stew underneath that.
Yep.
Yeah, that the chord progression in the Papa Roach song, it's in a different key, but it's the same chord progression, theoretically, just shifted over to modulated to a different key.
Do you hear that a lot?
Yes.
Like me, I never in my wildest dreams would I've connected those 2 songs.
Right.
Yeah, Justin used to call them on it because we used to trade shows with them.
Yeah.
Because they were from Sacramento, and they would come down and open for us in Orange County, and we would go up there to open for them, and play in front of their home crowd. So like we knew each other before we were both signed, and I guess we had a good enough relationship too. We could give them some shit like that, like, bro, you just ripped off Brain Stew, man.
That's amazing.
Nice.
And I mean, look at them now. It's still going, and that song was massive.
Yeah, it was a huge hit. He's on the singer's on a new name now, right?
Well, he was Kobe Dick there for a while, right? But
that was what he started with, right?
Jacoby Shaddix.
Jacoby Shaddix, and then I think he's something else now.
Is he?
It's like how many?
Man.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's like
P. Diddy.
Well, no, I was gonna say Big Baby Buddha, and who was he before that? And was it RZA that changed his name to that?
Old Dirty Bastard. Big Baby Jeebus.
Old Dirty Bastard. Oh
Big
yeah,
Baby
yeah.
Jeebus.
Big Baby
ODB's been a bunch.
Oh man.
And the simple context of the riff is really interesting because it's kind of like a corporate chime, right? Like AT&T or back in the day Singular. There's always that little like 3-note thing that kind of like circulates in your head. So I guess you're saying basically, yeah. So like the slash riff, Sweet Child of Mine you were talking about? It's just like you can kind of build off something like that, which is like a mistake basically. And a band can kind of use that as a core progression or like a basis for a song, starting from something simple as just a 3-note tune.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's more than 3 notes in any Ramones song.
Yeah, true. Now that I'm hearing them in my head, you're right.
I know, right? Now I feel professional.
Right? I guess the beginning of Sedated is that's just one chord. Dun, 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 dun. And now that I hum that out loud, it's the 80s song with the two brothers and the glasses. Dun, 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 dun. The Proclaimers, yeah.
500 miles.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say riffs don't necessarily need to be complicated. I guess solos can be more complicated, especially if you like delve deep into like Yngwie Malmsteen or something. But I always find that like whether it's Yngwie Malmsteen or Rush or I don't know some prog rock band that's playing some shit that really only other musicians really like.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, like I always found like for solos for me, I would always want a part to be like technically challenging for me to play or interesting. And then there always has to be a part that, there's no vocals there, right? Over solo, over the riff or anything. So when it comes to what you're playing, when your instrument, whether it's a piano or a horn or guitar, like you become the singer at that point.
Good point.
And the spotlight's on you, and nobody's really going to walk away from the show humming. Right. They want to walk away with a melody. So like you still got to give them something they can sing along to or hum to or something that they can grab onto that catches them. There's still got to be like a catchy, I don't want to say simple part, but there's got to be a catchy part attached with the complicated part. Otherwise, you're just complicated and like people not the masses into it. Yeah, people aren't necessarily into that unless you're like really into whatever instrument that is. Like you can be Victor Wooten at that point,
Right.
But I doubt half the people listening even know who Victor Wooten is, even though he's probably the best player on the best bass player on the planet.
Wow. It's you said something that kind of piqued my interest. It's similar when you're probably writing these, in the studio you want to bring somebody into a song, and it doesn't always start with, vocalist. It starts with, here's the riff. Like this is what's going to get you hyped to, oh man, this song's awesome. I remember this song. I'm super stoked to hear it. Because you get that like early riff to start, and then it jumps into everything else. So you have to be cognizant of that, whether you're playing it live or whether you're writing it to put on record. I would think. Yeah,
every band's different, but I will say for Zebrahead, 99 times out of 100, the music was written and usually completed before vocals came in.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely did the vocals start the idea of the song for us. And if the music wasn't interesting, we either kept changing it or just moved on to something else and tried something else. You know, I know, you know, other people write differently. Other people don't necessarily write collaboratively either. As a band, it might be like one or two guys write the songs and just bring it in for everybody and be like, here's what you play. Here's what you play. Here's what you play. You can make up your own stuff.
Nice.
But, you know, it just depends on the band. Like you guys said you had Nick from All American Rejects and it was either him or geez, I'm brain farting on the singer's name.
Tyson.
Oh no, Tyson's a
no,
singer,
Tyson. Yeah, Tyson. Yeah, it was them that wrote the songs. The other two guys didn't write a whole lot. So, you know, it's just every band's different.
Yep.
So take the solos. Does that, I would think for someone who, you know, played saxophone growing up, I would think solos stem from like knowing scales. How much does that play into it?
Definitely. So when I started playing guitar, the first teacher I had, she taught me from a Mel, God, I want to say Mel Brooks, but you know, as I get older, I can't believe how much I can't remember things anymore, where I'm like, I can picture exactly what I'm talking about. And the tip of my tongue is like right there, Mel.
If it was Mel Brooks,
Music.
I could talk Spaceballs with you all night.
Saddles?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Right. Mel
Robin
Bay.
Hood Men in Tights.
Mel Bay book is what it was. It's a good thing Google remembers these things, because the older I get, I'm like, that thing with the other, Jesus, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thanks AI.
Yeah.
The sooner I can get assimilated into the Borg, the better for me.
Nice.
Yeah. So and the Mel Bay books are very like, you're going to learn standard notation. It's going to teach you Mary Had a Little Lamb or Ave Maria, like the first books. And, you know, when I was 11 and I picked up a guitar, I was like, I just want to learn Van Halen songs. What is this garbage? And she's like, yeah, you just we gotta get there before you can, you know, you gotta walk before you can run, sort of thing. Right? And I'm like, and I eventually got fed up when I met some friends at school, and they're like, oh, you should try my guitar teacher. So he just teaches me Van Halen songs, Iron Maiden. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Let's do that.
That's
like,
the smart guitar teacher right there.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to go to that guy. Where do I go? Is there? So I went over and took a lesson with this other guy, Larry Sampson, Fullerton Music. He's still teaching music there too, at a mom and pop music shop that I can't believe is still in business 40 years later. But yeah, it's still there, still in downtown Fullerton where I grew up, and Larry's still teaching there. And when I went in for my first lesson there, and you know, it was like the trial lesson and see if you're going to sign up for more. He had a Van Halen backstage pass on his wall. I was like, Van Halen. He's like, I wouldn't say no, but I met him one time, you know, backstage. He's like, you like Van Halen? I'm like, and then we talked about Van Halen for like 10 minutes. And he's like, well, you know, I can just teach you Van Halen songs if that's what you want to do, but wouldn't it be a lot cooler if I taught you how to think like Van Halen, and you could write your own solos and write your own songs, and you could be your own Van Halen? And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
What?
This guy knew how to pitch, man. He knew how to pitch.
He locked you into like a 3-year deal right on the spot.
Man, I want to learn guitar right now, and I'm 37.
Sounds like a pyramid scheme. You want to be a millionaire tomorrow? Yeah.
Here are the tips and tricks.
Cutco is your future.
Yeah, so he had pretty much immediately shifted to, you know, he taught me a Van Halen song, but then we got into immediately music theory and scales and modes and just learning how to solo, I guess, for lack of a more descriptive word, but just learning to play your own thing and how it fits together. And you know, if you're I'm not sure about how it works necessarily on, say, sax, but for the most part, it has some familiarity with piano. Like most people had to play some piano as a kid or something, or had a piano in the house. And, if you learn, key of C is, all the white keys, right? And then if you go to C sharp, then, you've got the different keys have more of the sharps and flats, and then you play the black keys in with it, right? And so the scale, when you look at different scales on your piano, come up a little differently for voicing chords. Guitar is super simple because it's literally you learn one scale, and then if you want to play it in another key, you literally just move your key, your indicator for what you're playing, to a different fret. So you can just play the same set of notes in the same pattern on a different fret. Like it just starts. Like if you had the fretboard, let me grab a guitar.
I was going to say it's way above my head.
Let's say you had your scale on here, right? You could overlay all the notes on here like dots, and it was just a map of what notes to play. And you just want to shift keys from, let's say, G8. Let's go from C. And you want to go to D. You just literally move everything up 2 frets.
Wow.
Nice.
And you want to, so you just, whatever, it's the same pattern. It might be different notes, but the shape of what you're playing is all the same. So, it's just
hand position.
Yeah, just put it in a different spot. And then when you break down the chord progressions in rock, like we were talking about Brain Stew versus Cut My Life into Pieces, it may be the same, like theoretically it's the same chord progression, just in a different key. So honestly, there's really only about 4 or 5 chord progressions in rock music.
Wow.
And they're all the same. And they talk about 1-4-5 for rock music. Like 1-4-5 would be the root note, right? Or the root chord, then the 4th note in the scale, and then the 5th note. So a song like that would be Louie Louie is 1-4-5. Okay. It's 1-4-5. Wild Thing. Things. And you make my heart sing. Like there's literally like less than half a dozen probably of the chord progressions in rock. And once you've seen them all, and you just got to know to put them in a different key. And so, B.B. King used to talk about, what advice do you have for young guitar players? And he would always say, yeah, learn how to play in different keys. Just don't get locked in I can play blues in A minor, because, you're going to go jam with somebody. They might play the same song, but maybe they play it in B minor. Or you get older like Chuck Berry, and you can't sing that high anymore. So you modulate everything down a step and then a step and a half as you get older, because you can't sing that high anymore.
Man, so what you're saying is in copyright infringement court, the judge at some point's like, well, there's only so much you can do.
Yes.
What you need to do, Greg, I foresee a new job for you. You could be a copyright infringement lawyer and just be like, yeah, this is the same as that. Here, give the guy his money.
Tom Petty should have sued the Chili Peppers.
Yeah, right. Exhibit A, Greg has a guitar in court. Like, this is amazing. I'd watch that show right now.
I'm thinking back to like 20 years ago. I go to Warped Tour for the first time. Like, I can't imagine the musicians I'm seeing on stage even know about time signatures and chord progressions and keys and things like that. It seems so advanced for a lot of the bands I grew up seeing. I don't know. Maybe
I would venture to say that most of those bands probably did not understand any of those things.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
I will tell you that I can't tell you how many times I've gone on tour and other guitar players out on tour would be like, what are you playing? How do you do that? And I would be like, do you know your scales? And they're like, no, I don't want to learn theory because it might mess with my style. I'm like, I want you to think about that for a second. Now, I want you to picture Shakespeare in class with school, whatever the school there was back then, and telling his teacher, I don't really want to learn English, man. It's going to mess with the style, the way I write. I don't know if it works like that. I don't picture Jack Kerouac saying to his college professor, yo, bro, I don't want you messing up my writing style. I got this thing. It works good for me. I don't need to learn English.
Yep. Oh, man.
Yeah. So I would honestly, they would be like, well, no, I don't. I'm like, I'll tell you what, I got a surprise for it. And then I would chart things for them. I would write out like pentatonic scales, which is a 5-note instead of 8-note, which is the blues, basically. Some blues scales. And then I would give them, I would give it the whole length of the fretboard. And then the way my teacher broke it out for me was he gave them in boxes. So there's 5 boxes. The 5 boxes interlock into each other. So you learn one finger position 1 week, and the next week I come back for a lesson and he'd teach me position 2, and the end of position 2 fits into the same set of notes as the end of position 1, right? So they interlock together until you build out the whole fretboard and see what the whole fretboard looks like. And then the trouble becomes, as I used to read in like Guitar Magazine as a kid, they'd talk about breaking out of the box when you're playing. So you don't get locked into, you play this position and then you shift over to this one, right, to where you can make it smooth and transition between all of the boxes as if there were no boxes. And there's a set of notes talking that of what you want to convey. I think one of the best exercises my guitar teacher always gave me and encouraged me to do, and I don't know if this could be a thing anymore. I suppose it could be if you put on a playlist, because radio is kind of dead industry. Mm-hmm. But he would tell me, just turn on the radio and play along, just solo. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, just play whatever you want over it. I'm like, what if there's already a riff on it? He's like, play your own riff. I'm like, what if there's already a solo going on? He's like, play your own solo.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, I would just turn on KLOS back then, or KNEC, or whatever, rock stations, and I would just play along to a song and make up my own things, or play as if I was in the band and play on the ins and outs of things, to where you're like, I'm trying not to trample on the vocals right here, but here's a little spot so I can play right here. And, still try and play something that fits with the song, while, even though it's a song that's already written.
I just had a flashback. I'm in my room. I've got one of those little like basketball hoops that connects to your door. And I'm doing the whole, Michael Jordan 3, 2, 1 and shooting it, right? That's the same thing. You're playing music over the radio and trying to like learn how to do what they do, but also your own thing at the same time. You're just like, you're doing the 3, 2, 1 in the backyard, but you're doing it with the radio on and a guitar in your head.
Yeah. 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 It was definitely like, it's still fun for me to do. Like if I've got to learn a song for Bourbon Brothers, and like, I'm really trying to find a chord chart for it, so I have to listen, because jazz is a little different. And a lot of times, the playlist goes long, and then I'll roll into the next song, and I'll still just be playing along, like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. Oh, key change, missed it. Oh, well, where are we at now? Okay, we're here. Oh, just change back. All right, okay, here we are.
And Reed goes to get a beer, and you're like just playing, just like buying him time. I've seen that in person. It's fun.
That was an extraordinary long one.
He was gone for like 15 minutes.
Like, what is it? Did he go to the bathroom? Is he okay in there? Is he having a heat stroke? What's happening? Yeah, we do that all the time. Actually, there's been some shows where we played and he's looked over and been like, how long can you drag this out? I'm like, why? What do you need? He's like, I got shit. Hey, man, we'll make it work.
As long as you need, man. As long as you need.
That explains a lot.
right? You
During
can
live
back
shows.
though, right? I suppose you could pull that off at like a Fish concert, but I don't know about a Blink concert.
Right. I know the songs are so short. It's like,
Right.
Travis, how long can you play the drums for?
Yeah, keep going.
Unless it's like Gigi Allen, they'd be like, I'll just shit right here. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
and throw it at the crowd just because.
Distract the crowd.
Guys, I really got to shit. You're sorry to the front row.
Oh, so many questions answered just on that. Keep playing. I got shit, man.
Yeah.
How many times does that happen that I've seen and didn't know behind the music?
Way more than we want to even think about. For sure.
Eric Clapton keeps going. Oh, it's because the drummer left. Oh, he's got a shit.
Yeah, people. I've heard of Ed, the drummer in Zebrahead, saw Soundgarden in Seattle, and the bass player and the drummer were shouting at each other, and he couldn't really tell what they were saying because it was a big room, and from the middle of a hall, and bass player walks off, and they just kept playing, and bass player never came back until like the very end, and they came to find out that they got a fight. They were pissed off. He's like, "Fuck you, fuck, I'm leaving, fuck off." He just walked off stage.
You play bass. I'm playing drums though. Play both.
That's one instrument you can afford to let them walk.
Yeah. Depends on the band, though, right? I mean, occasionally. Yeah.
We've had a lot of great bassists, and they played a pivotal role in their band.
We love the bass player.
Yeah, if Peanut walks off stage, that's going to be rough.
That's different.
You're like, oh, now what?
He's kind of the driver sometimes.
When you were talking, Greg, about playing to the radio, I have visions of my favorite musicians and bands not practicing on their own outside of band practice. I just feel like they're already too good. They don't need to practice. Do you practice when you were in the thick of it or now, or is it just band practice?
So now we very rarely have a band practice for Bourbon Brothers. Our sets are so long, and we play so many times a week now. We're playing 3, 4, sometimes 5 or more times a week. I get plenty of playing time in, which is good and bad, because I wouldn't say that I get to practice. I get to play. And if I want to try new things, then at this point, I'm trying them in front of an audience or just going for it, which in part of my mind, I heard stories, and I forget who the player was in Miles Davis's band. And he was playing something backstage before the show. Miles comes in and he looks at his player. He's like, "Are you playing such and such song?" And he's like, "Yeah." "I don't pay you to fucking practice in here. I pay you to fucking practice on stage in front of fucking people. Yeah. If I ever catch you scripting something in here again or working on something, you're fired."
Wow.
Wow.
So like Miles Davis wanted his band to be very you're jamming, you're on the spot. We're this good. We're just going to do it right now. Rock guys, I don't really see any rock guys that are going to play a different solo every night and not have it be, and have it be different, have it be good, have it be, something phenomenal, unless it's like the jam session when you get to Clapton or something. Right. But even then, if Clapton plays Crossroads, people have been hearing that song for 50 years. If he plays the solo different, people are going to be like, "What the fuck?"
Right.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's not how it goes in my mind.
Right. It's not how I heard it on the record, or yeah.
Right. There's a gap for that. And I think rock artists are expected to have it be very close to the record, and the deviations are because they're usually fucked up.
Yeah.
Or they're just not that talented to recreate it, night after night.
Right.
And perfect, right? When I was on tour though with Zebrahead, I wake up at the ass crack of 11, right? Maybe 10, maybe noon, depending on how big I went the night before. And load ins at 2:00, 3:00, and then you sit around, and then I've got all my gear out and I'm bored AF. And so I would work on things all the time on tour. I would practice like from the time I unboxed the guitar after load in until like I'd usually take a break to go do something. But then when the show started, you know, if we're headlining, then when the first band would come on, I would go out and watch the show. And then I would sit on the side of the stage with a guitar and I would play along to whoever's set and just do like the same thing with the radio.
That's
and just
awesome.
play nice. But yeah, like earlier in the day, I would work on scales and I would create my own like finger exercises to work on things and get better. When I was younger, I would study more theory and try and learn like more exotic scales that weren't just, you know, major minor pentatonic, you know, let's see, melodic minor or harmonic minor. I would try and learn alternate tunings. So like Keith Richards, Rolling Stones, probably something that if you're a guitar player, you don't know. All his guitars are tuned to open G, and he isn't playing standard tuning. So he has different voicings for, like, if I were to play a chord, the same chord that he would play, he was fretting entirely different notes. And it has a bunch of open notes to it too. So it has like a different vibe to it. Like it's different, cooler, uncooler. It's just if you like that open tuning or not. Right. Mm-hmm. And then every open tuning. So they're probably way out of tune because I haven't done it in a while in here, but yeah, it's not in tune, but this one is open E. This one is drop D. This one is a half step down. That one's standard. This one should be dad gad.
So for our listeners, Greg has a wall of guitars, and he's just showing us each one of them.
Tuned to different spots, and exactly.
Yeah, you can tune them to different things, and even if you're playing the same chords, it sounds a little different. Like, let's think of a Zebrahead song. Blur. Blur was a song that is in open E, and I was playing around with a tremolo pedal, and God, I forget the name of the song, but the band was it was a song by a band called Big Wreck, and they had done a riff that was very similar to what's the Smith song? Is that Here Is Now?
Yeah.
Where basically what you do on the tremolo pedal is you put the rate, you open the rate and grab the pedal.
I love this tour of the studio right now.
Yes.
You put the depth all the way up at full, and then the rate will be how fast you want it to go. But if you put the depth at full, it'll open and close to where it kind of bottoms out, like it has that like emptiness, so it gives it like that stutter almost to it. And this other band did it, and I was like, oh, that Smith song is so cool, and if they're gonna rip it off, I'm gonna rip it off too. Fuck it. How can I? And then I wanted to tweak it so it wasn't so like I'm ripping off fucking Johnny Marr. I wanted to hide my theft a little better. So I had a riff, and then I had it in open E, and so I kind of built that riff around. I wanted to do what that other band did, but ripping off the Johnny Marr riff, but then kind of make it my own. So,
well, you did a good job. You did a good job because I've heard both songs a million times and I didn't think of it until you just said it. So
yeah.
But yeah, that song too. That's another one. Da 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 da. That's it's just it's pretty simple chords, and then it gets into the verse plays back into that
the beginning part, right?
The beginning riff, yeah.
I can hear it in my head.
I can hear it in my head too.
So when the question I had, and it kind of goes back to the solo writing solos, I guess maybe globally and also for you, when you're getting ready to go out on tour, do bands write a guitar solo they're going to use every night in a certain spot, or do you just kind of freelance it that night with what you're feeling?
I would say Fish probably freelances it that night of what they're feeling. I would say Slayer plays the same solo.
Stick to the script. Yeah.
I played my solos pretty much note for note on the record. However, there were a couple that even in the studio, I was just kind of like, just give me another pass. No. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, okay, that one's cool. And then I would kind of intentionally keep it to where I would try and play something different every night. But what would happen is by the end of the tour, I would fall into a groove of like, I like where this started. And then I would keep that. And then the next day I would build on that to something else. And I was like, I like how it ended. And then you're like filling in the middle. And then you would keep parts of different days. And then by the end of the tour, I was playing a completed thought.
That's exciting. Do you end up using that like down the road, like for something else? Did something come out of that sometimes?
For me, I can't think of a time when it happened. However, I will tell you that if on Van Halen, if you listen to the end of Jump, Eddie plays this riff at the end of the song on guitar that goes dun 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 as the song is fading out, right? And then 10 years later, and Sammy Hagar is singing, and Top of the World was the song, and that's the riff in the song. It's dun 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 dun. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I had to go back and listen to it, and I was like, sure enough, yeah, it's the same riff. He just put it in another song and built a song around it. I was like, oh, cool. It's like cool for fans to hear something like that.
Now I'm gonna go back and listen to that.
I know, right?
Like all these songs, I'm gonna go back and listen to with a different ear. And I guess that's maybe a question I just thought of. Is like, we're all sports nerds here, and in sports, there's objective metrics of how good someone is. Like DJ LeMahieu, batting champion. With guitar, like, how do you know if someone's good? Like, we're an untrained ear. Everything sounds good to us, but how do you know? Like, how do you know someone's a virtuoso?
Ooh, I guess, it's I would go back to the Eddie Van Halen thought on that. Like, if you like it, it's good. It with sports, it's competitive. There's a clear cut winner at the end of the game, right? I guess unless you're in mid season in hockey, you can have a tie. But I guess you can have a tie in football too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But I won't say who in our band in Zebrahead, but some people would get mad at other bands' success with the being irritated that we all collectively thought they sucked.
We can relate to that in a different way.
But they get a hit, and then you're like, those motherfuckers.
Right.
They did it.
Right. But, I was like, I would always tell them, it's not a competition, man. It's a brotherhood. And, what's good for them is good for us too. So let's lift each other up rather than make this a competition about like who's better at music. Cause I feel like music it's personal. It's more subjective, it's everybody's going to have their own opinion. Like, I'm sure my wife would not appreciate Slayer in the slightest, just like I don't really get Ellie Goulding.
Right. Yeah. But both great in their own right.
But
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the best part about music. You're right. It's everybody has their own opinion, and there are bands that bring people together, and there are bands that you kind of go into your own direction, but you can respect that the people like that over there. It may not be for you, but you can respect that.
Yeah. And, I always felt that, like, I don't know, for me personally, music was always so special to me that I was a super nerdy kid growing up, fat pimples, like I was a dork. And a lot of times, my guitar was my best friend. I was hanging out in my room by myself playing guitar, and like it always listened to me. It never shit on me. Like it was never mean to me. Never took my lunch money. And and I just felt that music was always like something to express yourself with. It was, always a shoulder to cry on, or your cheerleader in your corner, or honestly, in my case, it was always my Dumbo's feather. Like, I don't know if I would venture out of the house ever if I didn't play guitar. I damn sure wouldn't ever kiss a girl if I didn't play guitar. And, it's, that's why I was like, it's not really, it's not a competition. It's like, it's personal to everybody. And a lot of times I always thought this was special about Zebrahead. And I would see it with other bands sometimes too, not all the time, but you get people that travel to follow a band, and then a community builds around the music that you created. Mm-hmm. And they become friends that would have never been friends, and the band oftentimes becomes friends with these people that are fans, and they become fan friends or just friends after time, and coming to shows so often and hanging out together. And there's a lot of good times attached to that. And I can't tell you how many times like people would put like 3 CDs in front of me to autograph after a show, and somebody asked me which one's my favorite, and I was turning around and asked them, I'm like, which one's your favorite? Oh, hold on, actually, let me guess. And then I would look at them, I would look at the albums and try and kind of guess their age and figure out when like their prime hangout years with their friends are.
Yep.
And
nice.
And whatever record I thought timeline would coincide with what that would be my pick, and it would always be right. And
oh wow.
And I guess music is often the soundtrack to our lives.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And in so many ways, whether it's good or bad, or a breakup, a shitty time, a friend dying, a parent dying, or happy times, weddings, parties, like college, going out with your buddies, or a baseball game, or a tour trip, or a trip to go see a band play, or and there's so many feelings wrapped up in it, and to make it like special for everyone. And I don't know how to, I never felt like it was a competition, like who's best or who's better, or like there's just people that I think are good at making music. Some people are good at making music but not technically proficient at making music. Mm-hmm. I will say like Blink, outside of Travis, the other 2 guys, like Mark Hoppus, not a spectacular bass player. Catchy fucking songs though. Like, does it make his music? Does it taint his music that he's not a Victor Wooten on bass? Right. I don't think so.
No, right. You're right.
Yep. Totally.
Man.
So that kind of got us thinking. I mean, it's not a competition, but you must have favorites, like favorite solos. Any stand out that are just your favorite?
Of mine personally, or just like in general?
Of yours personally.
Of mine personally. The HMP solo I like a lot. Expectations I like a lot. Feel This Way I like a lot. Almost want to feel like I got to open up our catalog to look at the songs and try to remember. The riff in Blur is one of my favorite riffs that I ever wrote.
That's a cool one.
That is an awesome one.
Someday and Mental Health solos were really cool. I just thought they were like a cool tangent. They're very similar, but like a cool change of pace from what the rest of the song was doing to go in a different direction. I think I'd have to open up CDs to figure out more from me. There's some of my favorite solos of like other people though. All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
That solo is awesome because it has everything that I want. Like when I talked about, like it has complicated technical stuff, but my favorite part in the solo is when he gets to the halfway point and he steps on his wah and he's just playing he's playing like a chordy sort of thing towards the end. And and just like, oh, it opens up and comes into this catchy little melodic part before it, out of the shredding, when you're just like, oh yeah, right here.
Nice.
Van Halen, Hang 'em High. The song's probably, unless you're a deep cut Van Halen fan, probably not familiar with Hang 'em High on Diver Down. But the solo in that has a very similar, like, same idea, like it shreds in the first half, and then towards the end it's got this part that plays, where it's just like it opens up and simplifies, and it's just really cool. Obviously Eruption, I even thought Cathedral is arguably maybe more cool to me than Eruption was, because I guess at the time when Eruption came out, I didn't get into Van Halen until 1984, when that came out in 83, and I was 12. So when Van Halen 1 came out, I was 77 or 78. I was 5 or 6. I didn't listen to it.
Right.
So I didn't understand the tapping. By the time I started playing guitar, everybody and their mom was tapping and ripping them off. And so I didn't necessarily understand the ingenuity of it, but the playing Cathedral was really cool. Of like, what the fuck is he doing? How did he do that? That's not a normal sound a guitar is supposed to make. So Cathedral is really awesome. I love so many of Van Halen solos. It's hard to pick like one of my favorite Van Halen solos.
Yeah.
Like the songs themselves, Hot for Teachers, awesome song, especially when you're a 12-year-old boy and the video is amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
Yes, sir.
I recently saw one of those, like, where are they now sort of things scroll through my feed, and it was the teacher from Hot for Teacher. It's like, what is she doing now? Is she still like, is she a 60-year-old smoke show? And yeah, she's like a 60-year-old dance instructor, and she's smoking hot if you're into 60-year-old.
Amazing.
That's awesome. I mean,
You heard it first.
she's still teaching dance. She's a teacher and she's teaching dance. To bring it full circle, your music teacher's still teaching out there in California. So that's awesome. Well, I think
it's like, what's Stacy's mom up to now?
Yeah, good question.
Stifler's mom.
Yeah, Stifler. What's Stifler's mom doing?
Oh,
she's an actress, right?
Was it Stifler's mom in that video?
No, I don't know.
Could have been, right?
I'm trying to remember who was in that video. Was it a star? Was it a celebrity?
I don't think it was her.
Mom?
Yeah, I don't think it was her. It might have been a star, but I don't think it was her.
Lady on the cover of Enema of the State. What's she up to these days?
Right. She was a porn star.
Oh,
Jenna. Janice or something, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
She's probably in her like 70s now, 60s.
I know that's 20 something years, 24 years ago. So.
Wow.
Janine.
Janine.
That's right. Yep. Well, I think that's a good spot right there to wrap the Shreducation for tonight. I know there's more on the bone there. We can always come back to that, and we really, really appreciate, first off, you introing the episode tonight, Greg, and then sharing with us your technical ability and your expertise and knowledge of the guitar, man. It's been a blast to talk to you again.
Yeah, Greg, we really appreciate it. We love having you on.
Oh, no problem. When we coming back? Is that long enough to cut it into 2?
We'll do it again. No, but we'll do it again. I mean,
this would be one, but you're coming back.
I mean, you're the de facto 4th member, right? We've had others, but you are definitely the most comfortable in that chair, and we love it.
Yeah. All right.
That's going to do it tonight. Thank you, everybody, for listening, checking us out. If you had a guitar riff that you absolutely love, hit us up on social media. Hit us up on Twitter and the DMs, or anywhere on our social media platforms at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Gmail, podioslave podcast@gmail.com. Peace, podheads.